Pythagorean Theorem. Pythagorean Theorem has not changed from last year. All the rules still apply. We are going to be looking at right triangles today. So in order to find the side of whatever side is missing, it's important to just know the basic terminology. So you have bases and hypotenuses. A right triangle, in order to use Pythagorean theorem, must have a 90-degree angle. So in order to be able to use Pythagorean theorem, you must have a right angle. That is why it's called a right triangle. We label the legs as A and B. The hypotenuse is side C. It is always the longest side. So if you're given three numbers and told it's a right triangle, the hypotenuse will always be the longest side. Pythagorean theorem says a squared plus b squared equals c squared. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. When I give you PowerPoints, I usually make myself, I try to color code or bold what you need to fill in. Again, I'm not always perfect. Sometimes I make PowerPoints in a rush. For the most part, over time I have. So example number 1, find the length of the hypotenuse. So we are looking for that longer side. So we're going to take the two shorter sides. We're going to square them. So 8 squared is 64. 15 squared is 225. So then you take 64 plus 225 and you get 289. So 289 equals c squared. We're going to take the square root of those sides. Now 289 is a perfect square. So we're going to get that side C is 17 inches. And because we're taking a square root, you usually have this plus or minus feature, but we know that length can't be negative, so it is only the positive length, 17. Example 2, side A is 25. So 25 squared plus 14 squared equals the hypotenuse squared. So 25 squared is 625. 14 squared is 196. So 625 plus 196 gives us 821. 821 is not a perfect square. So when we take the square root of those sides, we are going to approximate our answer to 3 decimal places. So the square root of 821 is 28.653 meters. So 28.653 meters. So finding the hypotenuse is always the easiest side of a Pythagorean triangle to find because you just take the square root of the two numbers you're adding together. When you're given the hypotenuse, it adds an extra step because you have to combine like terms on the other side of the equal sign. So we have a squared plus 12 squared equals 20 squared. Remember, order of operations says exponents first. So I have a squared plus 144 equals 400. Now I'm going to subtract 144 from 400. And I get 256. 256 is also a perfect square. So now we square root, and we get that A is equal to 16 meters. So again, finding the hypotenuse is always the easiest. Finding the other side just adds an extra step to combine like terms. $13 squared plus b squared equals 35 squared. Order of operations says square our numbers first. So 35 squared is 1225. We're going to subtract 169 over. We get 1056. And again, by now all of us should be good with our handy dandy calculators. If you didn't know, you can hit second and like the square root key. And then if you hit second and the negative sign, it will put a and s under the square root. That will take the previous answer and plug it in for you. So you like don't have to type it. Also with like the newer calculators, you could hit second square root and you can like arrow up and hit enter on the 1056 and it would also put it under the square root for you. Does that make sense, or do I like need to put my calculator under for you guys to see? Are you going to follow along with that? So again, just like neat little like ways that save you the type. So 1056 is 32.496 feet. So the base of that triangle is 32.496 feet. So we have the Pythagorean Theorem, and then we have what we call the converse of the Pythagorean Theorem. So the Pythagorean Theorem says if you have a right triangle, then you can use a squared plus b squared equals c squared. The converse of the theorem says that if the sides of a triangle are given to you, so you have side length A, B, and C, it is a right triangle if a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So you could take any three sides of a triangle given to you without the drawing of the triangle and determine if that triangle has a 90-degree angle or not. If it has a 90-degree angle, then the Pythagorean theorem will hold true. So we are given side lengths 7, 12, and 18. So we want to determine, is a 7, 12, 18 triangle a right triangle? The longest side always gets plugged in for C. So we have 7 squared plus 12 squared equals 18 squared. And what we want to do is see, does the left side equal the right? So you would take 7 squared plus 12 squared, which is 193. And then you take 18 squared, which is 394, or 324. And does 193 equal 324? No. Therefore, since the left does not equal the right, this is not a right triangle. So that's what the converse of the Pythagorean theorem says. It says, if the sides equal each other, I have a right triangle. Okay, we have side lengths 10, 24, and 26. So 10 squared plus 24 squared needs to equal 26 squared. 26 squared is 676. 10 squared is 100. 24 squared is 576. So 10 squared plus 24 squared is 676. So since 676 equals 676, yes, it is a right triangle. That concludes chapter 0. So tomorrow we'll do a review, and then we'll probably look at lesson 1 from chapter 1 on Tuesday, but I want to make sure we could go over the review on Tuesday, so we'll take our chapter 0 test Wednesday. So we're not really going to learn anything else, but I didn't have a day to go over it, and I was super afraid to give you your chapter 0 test after the long holiday weekend. So I kind of wanted to buy like an extra day just to like, hey, here we go, like let's review this, and then take our test. So homework is 07 in our text.